I'm going to start by inviting you to think about your relationship to time. What if you could stretch time and make more of it? Sounds pretty amazing, right? That's going to be the focus of this discussion, and I hope you enjoy it. And if so, I welcome you to like, subscribe, and share. What would you say if I told you there's a way to have a sense of more time, a way of scaling time, if you will? It might not be how you think, though. So we hear a lot about time management, all of these time management hacks, and there's books written about them. Since doing my personal development work over the last decade, I think every teacher and every coach has had, some recommendation, some way of expressing how to make the best use of your time. There's just block scheduling, right? There's the one thing. There's all of these different systems. And they're all important in terms of strategy, but perhaps what's most important is our overall relationship to time. So I want to talk about it in those broader terms with that kind of point of view and that focus. So if you think of the quantum, for example, there is no space and time. What? And really, the ancient Eastern teachings all reflect this in some way, shape, or form. That when we're in a deeper state of consciousness, that higher level of consciousness, there is no space and time. So, how do we experience this? We can't live our lives in a deep state of meditation. Most of us can't even get there to begin with. Well, first, we have to step away from this privileging of busy, busy, getting things done, being the doers that we are. That has become such a way of being in our society. And let's step back and think about successful people, for example. Are successful people running around in a frenzied state trying to do all of this stuff like most of us are? No. So maybe let's learn from them. Busy people are busy. Successful people are successful. That's just how it rolls because they've learned how to work with time in a more creative way, shall we say. So, who do you want to model? The busy busies, like maybe you are right now, or successful people who kind of have figured it out? There is this notion that if you accomplish more in less time, then you're going to have more time. I think this is folly. This is an erroneous way of thinking. Here's the thing, we're never going to get everything done. We're just not. If you're a business owner, you know that. Like it's endless, right? Yes, we can set reminders on our fancy wristwatches, on our fancy phones, in our calendars or virtual calendars, digital calendars. We can do all those things. They can be part of the strategy to remind us to do this. Now it's time to stop and do something different. Discipline is essentially the key component to all of this, though. Let's not obsess about time management techniques and strategies. Let's change our perspective and our experience of time. One of my coaches, Christian Michelson, says, time is immeasurable. It is an infinite thing. And there is timelessness in all of us. Timelessness in all of us. So take a moment to reflect on that. And also take a moment to reflect on your experience with time. Let's try something. Let's try a little exercise if you can. I'd like you to close your eyes right now. So close your eyes and just take a few quieter breaths, deeper breaths maybe, just kind of connecting to your breath and getting in your body. Just feeling a little bit more relaxed, feeling a little bit more centered. Now, in that more quiet state, take a moment to imagine a life where you have all the time in the world. You have all the time in the world. So what does that look like? Picture it, vividly picture it. So notice how the day would look. Notice how you might be spending some of that time when you have all the time in the world. And as you begin to feel this, experience this in your mind's eye, notice how it feels in your body. How does your body feel in that timeless world where you have all the time in the world? Where does it feel strongest in your body? And then I'd like you to sort of step back and realize, oh my gosh, is there some resistance going on to that? Notice where this resistance is, because most of us will resist this idea of just having a free sense of time, a timelessness. So notice that resistance, and I'm going to invite you to focus on it. So just focus where that resistance is in your body. And it's not about thinking about, I want to get rid of that resistance or anything. It's just energy, right? Everything's just energy. So focus on that energy of resistance, wherever you're feeling it, in the center of your chest, in your gut, in your solar plexus. Maybe it's in your head. Where are you feeling that resistance energetically? Don't label it. Don't think about it. Just feel it. And as you feel into that energy, just stay with it. Stay with it. Don't judge it. And in time, what's going to happen is that energy is going to dissipate. It's going to release. And that's powerful. We want that to happen. So stay with it. Stay in your body, stay out of your head. If you want to stay with this, turn off the video and just be with that energy, that resisting energy, so that you can move through it. You can dissipate it. All right. There's a little bit of healing work. So open your eyes now. Note how you feel. What's different? Hopefully there's a sense of spaciousness, right? You feel a little bit bigger, a little bit expanded. This is how we begin to set the stage for our new relationship with time, that you can have all the time in the world, so that you can spend more time doing things that bring you joy, so that you have this abundance of time. It's not a scarcity thing. There's not a lack. In what area of your life are there time constraints currently? I'm going to invite you to set an intention around time, and I'd like you to be really specific about what you want. So how would you like to change your relationship with time? Set an intention there. And then have the expectation that you'll realize your intention. So you set the intention, and then I want you to also expect that that's going to come to fruition. By setting expectations about your intention, it'll have more of a likelihood of coming to fruition, to be realized. So what do you expect to happen? Maybe it's, I expect to have more family time. I expect to complete work tasks in a more focused and efficient manner. Maybe I expect to do more things that I love, as opposed to having to be preoccupied with things I don't like doing. Good. So you set some intentions, or an intention, you've got an expectation that's going to come to fruition. Let's look back, though, at some of the things that we say and do around time that creates this kind of scarcity mode and lack mode around time. We say things like, I don't have time. We say things like, I'm killing time. We say things like, I'm making time. We do things to keep ourselves really busy that make us feel important. We stay busy perhaps because we're running from things that we don't want to face. So those are some of the things we say and do around time that just become patterns of behavior, patterns of thought. And what if we start to believe we have all the time in the world, as I was mentioning earlier? We know that time ebbs and flows. When I teach beginner meditators to meditate, one of the things I invite them to do is to just sit in stillness for a minute. So just sitting there with their eyes closed in stillness, like a statue, not moving their body, just being with their breath for a minute. And when they come out of that, they say things like, oh my gosh, that was the longest minute of my life. And yet some of them will also recognize there was something really peaceful in that, right? So how is it that 1 minute can feel like an hour and 1 hour can feel like a minute? Why does 1 minute not usually feel like an hour in our rushed way of being? Well, when we don't feel like we have enough time, it seems like time's gone in an instant. So there's a correlation there. When we feel like we have all the time in the world, we tend to have a sense of plenty of time. There's a spaciousness to it. So time, therefore, is a mindset issue. Perhaps we need to let go of our limiting beliefs around time, our lack mentality, we'll call it. If we focus on not having enough time, then we will continue to get more of that experience of not having enough time. If we focus on having time, then getting everything done shifts when we're able to be more effective and more efficient. We need to understand that we have control over how we spend every minute of our lives. Time doesn't control us. The only person that can put demands on you and your time is you. Yes, other people at times are going to put demands on your time in terms of your family commitments, your boss at work, or even your friends. The only way they can really put demands on your time, though, is if you accept those demands yourself. So, say, for example, you're self-employed and you hire someone to work with you, and it starts to feel like that person's putting demands on your time. Well, you chose to accept that because you did hire the person, right? So you own that. If your boss at work is making demands of your time, you accepted the job, so you accepted those time demands. You're responsible. If your boss is doing too much, like overloading you with work, then you have that conversation, right? But think of our relationship to time, and we want to own it. We want to be in control of it. If you work with clients and customers, schedule adequate time so that it doesn't feel like they're putting demands on your time. So you've created a spaciousness around their requirements. Remember how it felt a minute ago when you experienced what it was to have all of the time in the world, what that felt like. How can you make that more of a reality? Well, let's think about, I've used this word spacious a lot. Let's think about creating spacious timelines. What do I mean by this? Well, the timeline must feel more comfortable and spacious, so there's less pressure on us. Let's step back a moment here. When we operate from fear and worry, we operate in a lack mindset. There's not enough time. And in this lack mindset, we get caught up in things like deadlines and urgency. And here's a secret. Most deadlines aren't generally as important we make them out to be. And almost all urgency is an illusion. So maybe missing a deadline isn't the end of the world. I spent 25 years of my life working in an organization that was constantly in this hurry up to wait mode, all these urgencies and false deadlines where we were pushed to complete projects and assignment by a specific date, only to wait for another part of the organization to determine what it wanted to do with that stuff, if anything. So talk about demoralizing. And this is how many bureaucratic organizations run. A lot of work is being done that goes nowhere. With deadlines, yes, there is a cost if we miss it, but maybe it's a matter of negotiating what that deadline is so that we're not so constricted. If there's room for some spaciousness and people don't need something right away, well, let's extend that deadline. If you don't ask, you'll never know. In the end, it's really about just honoring your commitments anyway. With this spacious approach to timelines, you can enjoy your life a little bit more. You may not be more productive. You may not be achieving more. You may not be in that successful mode as much. Because here's the thing, most of us believe that we achieve success and then we create time for ourselves. Then we'll feel more joy and we'll stop feeling bad about our preoccupations with work. But what if we are okay with not being as successful in the business world as we would like? What if we can make our lives more joyful now instead of hurrying to achieve things and becoming more successful? If we are doing what we love, the reality is success is a byproduct of that. This is the thrust of my coaching program for midlife men. You no longer need to be in the grind doing what doesn't serve you, regardless of where you are in the whole hierarchy of the thing, if you're in the shop floor or if you're in the C-suite. Here's the thing. We judge ourselves constantly over what we should or shouldn't be spending time on. And the more we live in that sort of should and shouldn't land, the more separate we are from what truly matters. There's always a part of us that knows what it wants us to be doing, and yet we override it because we get stuck in these tight timelines, these deadlines, this busyness. It just becomes a pattern. We lie to ourselves about how we are spending our time. We'll feel wrong about doing something, but it doesn't jive with us, but then we rationalize it and make it okay. We all judge ourselves, and that's part of being human. But it's important to realize and forgive ourselves for these judgments so that we can move on and do things like embracing a new relationship to time. What are some judgments that you have about yourself in time? For me, for example, I've always struggled with idle time. So when something's not scheduled, It can feel like, that's hard. I can go a little bit snaky with that. But what I've learned is just to embrace that, to not make sure that every hour of every day is occupied with something on the schedule or something to do. And we can make peace with this and accept it in ourselves, that it's okay. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to have some spaciousness. It's okay to have some unscheduled time. We can also positively affect time by learning to love what we're doing, making a priority of learning to love what we're doing. It can seem a little bit difficult, but here's the thing. When you love and enjoy everything you're doing, there is no hurry. Have you ever had an experience, for example, watching a beautiful movie and just really loving it all and hoping it doesn't end? Well, what if your life can start to look like that? Regardless of what you're currently doing for work, for example, show up as yourself 100%. Think of it as duty, but duty from a place of love. So whatever you're doing right now, do it from a place of love and service. And yeah, if it's not your ideal job, then start to take some informed action, including setting an intention to change it. But for now, show up every day, practice patience. Patience is part of that spacious timeline too. And know that this too will change. Perspective is everything after all. And when we're busy chasing time and living the busy path, we often lose perspective. For example, what would you need to achieve more joy in your life? Good question, right? Would it be more patience? Would it be more loving energy? These are things that we need to bring perspective to. How would you need to be in order to feel that way? Probably more calm, probably more secure in yourself. Can a higher perspective get you there? Yeah. So maybe if we're not operating in the habit form patterns that keep us going every day, going through the grind, things can change. And a good way to do that is gratitude. Gratitude is a great way to start creating a higher perspective of self. Being grateful for this gift of life, for example, and all that it's brought, including some of the challenges that you've been able to overcome. Those challenges are points of growth. Gratitude is a great starting point. I'm going to invite you to practice gratitude daily, first thing in the morning and before you go to bed. Will you commit to trying that? I encourage you to. Our minds are like machines. They're constantly remembering the past and worrying about the future. And when we appreciate the fleeting nature of all things, then life's just a little bit easier to enjoy and be grateful for. Nothing will last forever, so be grateful for what we have right now. And there's this idea of simplifying your life, right? Simplifying your life to create more. When we have a lot of things occupying our life, the things can shrink time. So one way to address this is to create a list of things that you don't like doing, for example. Then figure out, how can I get rid of or change some of them? If you're a self-employed person like me, and marketing is something you have to do, but it's something that you don't really enjoy, how can you get that off your list? Can you farm it out to someone, get someone to do that work for you? If house cleaning is something that really annoys you and requires the use of energy that you would like to put elsewhere, consider hiring a house cleaner. If you hate going to the gym, but you still want to stay in shape, well, find more creative ways to do exercise. See, too often we get stuck in patterns, forgetting that we have options. We always have options. There's always choices to be made. When we also may burden ourselves with unnecessary or too many commitments. So all of these are ways that you can start to simplify your life. Maybe think about eliminating that one project, that goal, that role, or that dream that you've had that hasn't been moving forward. When you can let go of it, it's actually going to create space to have other dreams realized more quickly. A good example in this spacious time that we're talking about is when new projects or opportunities come up, is to take some time to consider them and recognize, will they needlessly complicate your life? And if so, maybe it's not the right time to take them on. Here's the thing, we can get adrenaline rushes from all the complications that we introduce into our lives. That adrenaline becomes intoxicating, and then it becomes problematic because we find ourselves in this cyclical behavior, and our lives start to feel very constricted. And this is where the lack of time comes in, this concept. When we create spacious timelines, success comes more quickly because there's room for it. More room for success, freedom to live, and to manage your time. Time doesn't have to be a limited resource. Remember that. There is plenty of time, but only if you create enough space. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. Simple as that. Maybe it's about slowing down, looking at your life from a position of the neutral observer. So that thing we did earlier, we close our eyes and we just kind of reflect. That's a good way to do this. Think about that and think about how you can reduce the clutter in your life and get rid of stuff. So lots of stuff takes up energy. It takes energy to maintain, and some of that stuff just becomes a big drain. So simplicity it can uplift that energy. It can create and contribute to this expanding sense of time, living a more simplified life. I'd like you to consider why you're so busy too. So when someone's always on the go, busy, constantly driven, there's often emotional stuff there that they're trying to avoid. And I know this is going to make some of you squirm, but that's okay. So it could be unresolved issues or emotions that you don't want to face. It could be the FOMO thing, just the fear of missing out or the fear of loss. Maybe it's a fear of boredom. Maybe it's a fear of boredom. Maybe it's a fear of letting other people down. And maybe it's a fear of guilt. You don't want to feel guilty. An antidote to busyness is to create time for boredom. Yeah, to actually create time for boredom. Think of boredom as a way station to real fulfillment. Face the boredom and the uncomfortable emotions that will come up in the boredom. Don't do anything, just be there. And in that boredom, you're actually going to learn something about yourself. Some of you might not even be able to do it, but just to sit and do nothing. It's challenging. And maybe it also includes changing your idea of what success looks like. I alluded to that a little bit earlier. You may view successful people as someone in high demanding jobs, like living the jet set lifestyle. Maybe that's not the image for you. You can change your image and your ideas of what success means so that it's not about draining your energy and leaving you depleted. If you're on the busy equals success program of living, you probably rely on things like food, sugar, caffeine to fuel your busyness. But those actually really drain your energy. You can often get into patterns of eating when you're tired rather than resting. The busyness cycle feeds itself, as all imbalances do. So in creating a more spacious calendar, we create more opportunities to be mindful of all of this stuff. Instead of just go, 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 we can actually get some reflection time. I know that making change is hard. Let's embrace a growth mindset here. Know that your past doesn't have to inform your future. Know that you can dream of something new for the future at any time. This idea of embracing boredom for a while is a powerful one, to be honest with you. When you slow down, you raise your awareness and you can ask, do I really want this? You can take some time to contemplate what really makes you happy. So maybe the path you're on isn't it. In midlife, these reflections, this contemplation is essential. And our success stories may start to change too as we do this reflection. Our sense of what success is, our sense of time will change too because we're getting closer to our death than we are from our birth. There's something within us that's compelling us to figure this stuff out. We can choose to remain stuck, especially in midlife, or we can live in a world where we are the co-creator of every experience and we can take full responsibility for it all. In midlife, therefore, we can focus more optimistically on our futures and identify all of those great things that happen to us all the time, every day. There may be underlying beliefs that are keeping us stuck. But we can get more honest with ourselves and start to recognize some of those thought patterns and ask, are we living with time spaciousness, or is time completely taken up by acting in old ways and from old perspectives and old views? We can decide to have plenty of time. We can decide to live in a world where we don't hurry, worry, and rush around. When we hurry, worry, and rush around, how often does that end up having a positive impact on our lives anyway? If you find yourself having the thought, I don't have enough time, catch yourself, change it to, I have all the time in the world. Make that mental adjustment. Look for ways to up-level your energy and consciousness. So exercising, meditating, prayer, gardening, music, gratitude practices, as we discussed, being around groups of like-minded people. So all of this is going to start to up-level your energy. And when you up-level your energy, you can be in this place of spaciousness. As you continue to elevate your consciousness, connect with others with higher energetic frequencies, and this law of vibration, you're going to find that your perspective begins to shift and there'll be more spaciousness in your life as a result. I hope I've shared some ideas here with you that are food for thought, that will get you thinking and acting in new and different ways and finding that spaciousness that's so, so, so necessary in most of our lives. Thank you. So again, please feel free to leave comments, to like, to subscribe, and to share. See you next time.